Hey everybody, it's me, Lila, back with another one. So I realized this morning that there's actually more anecdote content, I think, than there is raw journal content, and I need to be doing the anecdotes a little bit more frequently. And then this also was kind of a step back in time and a good place to start. I probably maybe should have done this one first. Maybe I'll just make this episode 0 and then and something. Actually, maybe that is a pretty good idea. So, but I'm not really sure what's in this just yet. So we'll see. But anyway. Point is, we're going to do another anecdote now. So this is anecdote number 1, a lesson in civics, or prologue part 2. Now, prologue part 1 has over time gotten lost in the shuffle. It either turned into something else. I think it became what was going to be the introduction for the book, and then I went in a different direction. As the whole thing is just all a hot mess. So, like I said, part of this is organizational strategy. And part of this is just like working through trauma. Part of it is just telling people what I think and what other people have told me is a cool and interesting story that I should be doing this. So, so here we are. But so all that being said, this is prologue part 2, but I have no idea what was in prologue part 1 anymore. So this is just anecdote number 1, a lesson in civics. Um, Things are going to get a little nutty spiritual in this one. Just please bear with me and take what I say here with a grain of salt and a hit of the old peace pipe. That being said, this anecdote is intended to paint a picture of why I feel completely justified to include this portion of the book above and beyond the setup provided in the prologue. Okay, so yeah, I think the prologue is pretty much everything that I just mentioned at the beginning of episode 1. Just the glazing over the backstory of like how I got here, in order to get that framework in place. And so I actually plan on doing next the commentary over the spades and that video and stuff. So I want to make sure, and then I'll add this here after I edit that because I don't want to be super repetitive. So I want to see if I mentioned, I'm pretty sure I did, but tell the whole story of how we met in the first place. As that's all prologue part 1 probably was. I am a politically active person. I have volunteered to work the election since the primary in 2016. The general election on November 6, 2018 will be the 4th time since I have lived with him that I have worked as a call center operator, supporting the polling places by providing assistance with technical issues, as well as verifying that, for example, voters aren't in the poll book, are in fact in the correct polling place, or like getting people registered to vote and that whole 9 yards. So the makeshift call center is set up in the House chamber at the state capitol building, which is 4 or 5 blocks literally down the street from where we live. I also regularly use Lyft and Uber ride-hailing services and taxi cabs since my arthritis has gotten so bad that I can't even walk the few blocks without severe discomfort. For those that may be reading this that are unfamiliar, all of these services charge a fee to pick you up at one destination and drop you off at another. Lyft and Uber are mobile apps that you download onto your phone or other device. You input your credit card information as well as other details about yourself, usually including typical pickup and drop-off points such as home and school and work and the like. When you order a ride, the app uses GPS to determine your location, then you put in the address of your destination, and the app quotes you the price to take you there. On election day, Lyft and Uber are offering free and/or discounted rides so that people can make it to the polls to vote. Let me reiterate that. So that people can get to the polls to vote. Hopefully, you can all understand that I am not one of the people who will qualify for a free ride to my destination on election day. Hopefully, it is also clear just from this that he has had all of the experience necessary to put this together himself. Let me add that I early walk-in voted last Saturday. I always early walk-in vote because I have to. I'll be on lockdown in the state capitol basement on election day answering phones with access to sensitive poll information. Included in this information is the location of all of the polling places. This is not sensitive. I was referring to private information and knowledge about the goings on at the polling places. So we would have to be there. Like the polling places were open from 7 to 7. And all of the equipment and everything for the polling places is at the state capitol building. And so starting at like 5 a.m. or maybe even earlier, I don't know, the people that are going to be running the polling places come to the state capitol building to pick up all of the equipment and the ballot boxes and all of that jazz. Everything is like sealed and whatnot. Um, and then they take them to their respective polling places and start getting set up. So those of us that work in the call centers start arriving around 5:30. They provide breakfast and lunch, and then we were paid a stipend. I think we were paid like $85 for the day. And we got a breakfast and a lunch, and it was good stuff. It was catered from like local business bakeries. So like the breakfast was like fancy donuts and pastries from like one of the bomb ass bakeries downtown, and then the lunch was like a just like a sack lunch, like a sandwich and chips and a brownie, but it was from one of the fancy like local owned like fresh baked bread bakery cafes downtown. So like they were like the meals that we were provided and stuff for that day were really pretty good too. So anyway, all that being said, so it was like show up at 5:30 for donuts and coffee, and then make your way into the state capitol to the Senate chamber was where we did the work at, sitting at the various desks and using the phones down there. And the people in the polling places would start calling in already, maybe sometimes by like 6 a.m., needing help setting up the machines or this, that, and the other. We'd have to troubleshoot the broken ones. And it was a lot of have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again, right? And all this sort of stuff. And then by the time the polling places would start opening, people would be calling. They would have to call like once an hour to report all of their write-in votes and all of that stuff. So each of us that were working in the call center was typically assigned. Um, we would take all inbound calls in the order that they're received, but we were also responsible for calling and checking in on our two or three polling places because there was like 100 of us doing this and stuff. And so, anyway, so that was the day. And then we weren't allowed to leave the building until all of the polling places were closed. And by the time, because we're in Hawaii, so like by the time our polling place was closed, like by the time everybody was winding down and everything was getting finished up, we would be pretty dead. And we would have on the TV down there, like watching the election results coverage, because, like I said, by the time things start winding down, there's not really any phone calls anymore. So for like the last hour, we're just like watching, CNN or whatever it is, watching the election coverage. And it's like the election's over by the time our polling places are closed. So so usually, like we would, and then we'd be released by the time everybody had finally called in and said that their last voter had voted and left. So, yeah. So I mean, it was a long day. Um, and yeah. So now that we're mostly mail-in vote and stuff like that, like we don't do this anymore because there's only two places to vote. You can vote downtown in Honolulu, or you can vote like to vote in person. They only do it in downtown Honolulu and like downtown Kapolei, and maybe there's one more over like in Kaneohe on the west side or something, or the east side. I'm not sure. I don't remember, but basically, like there, we don't do our elections like this anymore. Um, but yeah, so that's like I said, like, just a little bit of a background. So what I mean is that like from the time we start, we're locked in the building, basically. Um, So you have to vote early if you're going to be volunteering to work the election. You don't have a choice. Each congressional House district is divided into a few precincts, and each precinct has a specified polling place to which all constituents of that precinct must go in order to vote. Therefore, Lyft and Uber will presumably have these locations preloaded into the app and will take you for free to your polling place. He spotted, I like this would be so easy to do. Right, that you pop in like where you're wanting to go from home to your polling place, the app could just know that if this is where you live, that your polling place is X destination, and you would be ordering trips, like if you want the free trip, you'd be ordering it from your home to your polling place, and the app could easily know that. Okay, I feel like I've just beaten that to death, but hopefully, like everybody's on the page, right? That like there is no fucking around with this. There's no using this to get a free ride to the grocery store, right? They're not this stupid, right? This is too like these corporations and businesses aren't that dumb. They know what they're doing before they start giving out free shit. Okay, so he spotted a post on Facebook about the Center for Native Hawaiian Advancement's partnership with Lyft to provide free rides to polling places. He didn't point it out to me. He asked if I was going anywhere on election day. Well, duh. Like he just turned to me and was like, "Are you going anywhere on election day?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, to the to the Capitol." And this wasn't the first rodeo. Like I said, when I first moved in with him in April of 2016, I did this August of 2016. So we're now in August of 2018. So like we've done this, but he knows this already. Okay. I reminded him that I'm going to the Capitol to work at the call center. Only then did he mention the post specifically, stating that, and he would do this a lot. it was a lot of like he would try to like bait me into giving him more information or what that didn't ever exist, right? It was just very, it's like, can you just spit it out already, you know? Just say what you mean to say. In that sense, like I know this is like a snarky thing to do to people, but like when someone asks you if they can ask you a question, like you just ask me a question. So like, yeah, okay, go ahead. Right? That he'd do stuff like that all the time. And it's like, why don't you just speak? But the thing is that was kind of a red flag to when I knew that whatever he was doing or whatever was going on was just some kind of bullshit because otherwise he would just say, he wouldn't be like, do you think you're going to be hungry later? And then like, of course I'm going to be hungry later. I just fucked that up. I'm going to have to edit that out. Um, like, of course I'm going to be hungry later. Why? I was like, well, I was thinking like we could order pizza for dinner tonight. Like, why don't you just say, I think we should order pizza for dinner tonight? Right? It's just like, why don't you just start the conversation where the conversation starts? Because any other time he would just talk at me. Right? Other times I'd be sitting there doing what I'm trying to do, and he would just walk over and be like, look at this coin I found. I looked it up online. It's worth $10,000. And it's like, no, it's not. Oh my God. Like that shit got really fucking old, really fucking fast too, but whatever. So anyway, so they're giving free rides to the polls on election day. Who is? He is always this vague and it's infuriating. Getting him to explain anything in a way that is accessible for other people's understanding requires an absolutely unrealistic amount of effort. So I just get up and go look at his laptop. Well, Google it and see what it's about. It may just be for Native Hawaiians, I respond, hoping that he'll just let it go. He doesn't. No, I think it's for everybody. I can't even. Fuck my life. Fuck this day. I'll look into it, I reiterate, knowing full well that it's not going to be something that I can use because I'm not going to a polling place and the Capitol isn't any closer to a polling place than it is to our apartment. When I find the page, my suspicions are confirmed. The Uber and Lyft apps will already know where to take you, your polling place, based on your home address that you have provided in the app. Now, these are details that he does not even remotely comprehend. The point is that when I say that I can't use it as I am not going to a polling place, the topic should be closed, right? So here's the conundrum, right? It's going to be a monumentous effort to explain to him why I cannot use this, right? Why it won't work. I do not want to spend this time and effort to explain it to him, okay? But realistically, right? It's like if I should have just told him that someone that I know is also doing this and they're just going to pick me up. But the problem with that is he will walk me downstairs in the elevator and go downstairs with me and insist on waiting for this person to pick me up who doesn't exist because no one's coming to pick me up. Do you know what I'm saying? Like there isn't because the guy won't get away from me, right? So I can't even fib just to get him to get out of the way, right? And I can't even tell the truth and it just be the end of the conversation. He won't take no for an answer. So, like me telling him I looked into it and it won't work for me, and this is where this anecdote is going to go, I'm pretty sure, because I'm not going to a polling place. So, this is actually kind of an interesting situation, though, too, with his building. His apartment building is right on the corner of an intersection of two relatively major streets, and catty corner from his building is an elementary school that is a polling place for the adjacent precinct. The precinct that we lived in his building, the polling place was the community center at the park on the opposite side of the precinct, like 5 blocks in the opposite direction from where I need to go. And then from our apartment, the 4 or 5 blocks to the state capitol building, the polling place for that precinct is one of the schools that's like another 4 or 5 blocks like up the mountain. And so we already live as close to a polling place like as I could ever get. So like the polling place between our apartment and the state capitol building is the one that's across the street at the elementary school. So like I can't even use this to get a little closer to my actual final destination. I just have to get from the apartment to the state capitol. So, like everything that I just explained, imagine, and of course, like you don't understand or know enough of that much about this guy yet, but like imagine trying to explain that to someone who is hard of hearing, who is convinced that they are correct and you are wrong, and thinks that you're just being humble and don't want to take advantage of something that's free. And by the time you add all of the problems in, it's an insurmountable task. Okay. So, like I said, these are details that he does not even remotely comprehend. The point is that when I say that I can't use it as I am not going to a polling place, the topic should be closed. Yeah, so maybe you can get a ride to where you're going, he continues, unnecessarily by all accounts. But I'm not going to a polling place, so I won't be able to get a ride to where I'm going, I say. Again, fuck. You could just use them to get there, then bring the cab back, he continues. But I'm not going to a polling place, I sharply fire back. He makes a face as though he's about to pop off, then stops, shuts the fuck up. Finally, but to be frank, uncharacteristic. Maybe he is actually learning to just leave me the goddamn hell alone and let me live my life, or at the very least stop trying to force his opinion onto my knowledge. Time and time again, he has tried and failed to discuss something with me, only to find out that he just doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Those situations are going to be my focus for these anecdotes, which I'm using to develop a sort of secondary thesis to support publishing this perhaps seemingly terrible memoir. He's a straw man that's been set up to display these characteristics. Like I've said before, the trauma isn't him in particular, right? Talking about him is secondary to the actual focus of this. So when I edit, which is it's funny, like future me is going to edit episode one's raw journal to include this information. That um, the purpose of telling this story is not to shit all over this guy. Okay, the purpose of telling the story is for me to work through my trauma, present something like this to people as an interesting story to listen to, but then also it's to set forth the hypothesis that this was not an organically happening situation. This was a setup. This was something that I was manipulated into. And I think he was manipulated into it as well. And as this moves on, I'll go into more details about how I think that that worked. Um, and the mechanics of how someone could easily pull something like this off. And by someone, I don't mean like some like nefarious character like stroking their beard and laughing maniacally to themselves. I mean like an entity, like we're talking like MK Ultra or like fucking like institutional fucking with people stuff. Okay, not like I said, like I don't mean like some random person. Like we're talking like orchestrated gang stalking or institutionalized manipulation. Um, So anyway, right, those situations are going to be a focus of these anecdotes, which I'm using to develop a sort of secondary thesis, right? He's a straw man that's been set up to display these characteristics. Someone's telling him to do this stuff. Like he gets up in the morning and he checks his email or his Facebook messages and someone is telling him to do this stuff. Like while he's over on his computer, like someone on Facebook Messenger. And I think so just to get into some of it, like who someone pretending to be me, convincing him that it's me and we're doing some kind of weird thing together. So like he thinks I'm telling him you need to press the issue that she could use this to get a free ride. You're going to have to just pressure her until she finally concedes. Right? And then it's like, but for me, knowing full well that it's not something that's going to work and whatever, this is harassment, right? Where that it's like, because it's like, if that's what's happening, someone telling him, treat her like this, and then he's actually treating me this way, this treatment is harassment. It's not, it doesn't benefit me in any way, shape, or form, which is why when I've said, like, my defense mechanism of intellectualization in order to work through this traumatic experience is what I'm doing right now, telling every fucking body that this is something that happened to someone. And I think people are out here actually institutionalizationally fucking with people. And the reason you can't say anything about it or go anywhere else is because there's already an existing mental illness that encompasses these characteristics. You just get diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. that you think that people are after you and telling other people to fuck with you. Like, come on, it sounds insane. I'm completely aware of that and always have been. That it's like there's nothing I can do but deal with this on my own in however way that I see fit or necessary or whatever. It's very it's a very lonely thing, right? So anyway, that being said, at the very least, I highly suspect there is some funny business at work here. His overall character is incredible. His personality on the verge of insufferable. So I mean incredible in the sense of like if you break that down, not incredible, like wow, that's incredible. It's not credible, right? His where his overall character. So like I'll say in other places, like I felt like I was like in a really poorly scripted television show or something. It was just weird. It was like nobody actually talks like this. Nobody thinks this way, right? And I feel like this has been in one of the raw journals already. This whole this idea of like that he's a caricature of a person. Um, but yeah, so like I said, his overall character is incredible. His personality is on the verge of insufferable. Right? And it's horrifyingly intolerable, but in a way that's like on that cusp, that verge of like that if you are the one who finally loses your cool and pops off and bites his head off, you're the asshole because this is a 70-year-old deaf man who suffered a stroke. How fucking dare you? But I don't think any of that was true. There's times that I'm like, I don't think he was even deaf. I think he's maybe actually just slow, and saying that he's deaf is how he gets around people, getting frustrated with him or whatever. It's an excuse crutch. Right, but then it's like I said, I saw the paperwork on his desk from what appeared to be, but you know what? People can fake documents all the time. Like I said, I think I've mentioned this before in the movie Parasite, where the dad is like, it's too bad you can't get a degree in counterfeiting paperwork. I mean, right? So it's like, who knows what's even real and what's not anymore? Um, and that his rebuttals aren't always stupid or self-centered. They're just very peculiar. It's as if he can't tell whether I'm being straight with him or if I'm referring to something else in an arcane way, right? Like the don't talk about Fight Club, right? That it's like if he thinks if I'm not giving him the expected responses, he thinks I must be talking about something else. But he has trouble understanding so much that almost everything I'm saying to him sounds like I'm hinting at some ulterior motive, right? It's craziness. He tries to outdo my knowledge from experience with his intuition from seemingly poor reasoning in such a way that it really seems like he thinks we aren't talking about what we're talking about. Another possibility is that he's just a know-it-all, and if he doesn't understand, then neither must anyone else. The latter would explain the almost complete lack of interaction, as far as I can tell, with all of his family he claims to have, nor with this motorcycle club that he claims to be a member of. Whether this is a carefully developed ruse or the vast majority of people simply do not like this guy, I feel like it's valid to write about this man in the same sense as researchers are justified to write about Phineas Gage or Kitty Genovese, you know the story. The woman who was attacked that apparently that nobody called 911 and when it's been debunked. Like even her own brother wrote a book about how that's not what happened to my sister, basically and stuff. But like, and then Phineas Gage was a railroad worker that had the railroad spike go through his face in an early explosionary accident, and that he survived it, but it completely changed his personality. So that was the opened the door to understanding like frontal lobe damage and how it affects aggression and personality traits and all that stuff. So right, so it's like it's a case study of an interesting nature, which is why like I'm not I don't want to throw this person under the bus or like have everyone in their everything, know what's going on. But they're all dressed up. The backpack. I think they have a parade or something today. What is today? January 25th. I hope it's not a funeral parade. That would be really sad. They practice every Wednesday and Thursday night, so I'm just so used to the bagpiping by now. But like they're walking back and forth through here in their full garb. It's actually kind of cool because I've never seen them. I've seen them just in their regular because they march around kind of the neighborhood, and it's like the ground floor of the parking garage. But yeah, there's a lot of really dressed up officers and stuff too. So I feel like it's a funeral parade. Um, Anyway, so let me try to get through this as quickly as possible then before it starts getting either too loud or too bustly over here. Where was I? Do. Okay, go down here. Okay, this is at least the third time he has sparked a major conversation with me that directly involves his naivete or ignorance about the election process. There have been other minor incidents in which this lack of knowledge has played a role in illuminating the depth of his stupidity, one of which appears in the journal entries. And when I say that, the stupidity, because I know it probably sounds like it should say like ignorance or naivete or whatever, but it's not. It's the stuff that was the things that he had done and said to me with relation to this was just completely, it doesn't make any sense. So like there was one time, because like I said, I was a member of the executive committee. I was the Region 2 chair. Um, for the Democratic Party on Oahu for a year, 2 years. And so every month I would have to go to a meeting. And so he was always like weird about this. And then finally one day he turns and he asks, he's like, when you say Democratic Party, do you mean the DNC? And I'm like, yeah, the Democratic Party. And he's like, oh. But I'm like, what else would I have been talking about? Right? I feel like that's one of the most shining examples of what I'm talking about here. Like, I don't know what he thinks I'm talking about. Oh, wait, I'm about to tell that story. Okay, so there have been other minor incidents in which his lack of knowledge has played a role in illuminating the depth of his stupidity, one of which appears in the journal entries. For another instance, it took him forever to figure out that when I say I'm doing things with the Democratic Party, I'm the county level region chair that oversees 4 districts. This will be important again in the aforementioned journal entry, that I mean the Democratic Party. One day, after over a year of going to events and meetings and conventions and him repeatedly asserting that I should be getting paid for what I was doing, what the actual fuck? He finally asked me one day, are you talking about the DNC Democratic Party? Ding, ding, ding. What the fuck else is there? This is the sort of thing that I am referring to when I say funny business. To reiterate, it often feels like he thinks I'm covertly talking to him about something else. Perhaps he is actually very smart about whatever game it is that he thinks we're playing, and I just have no fucking idea because I live in reality, right? Like he thinks I'm a member of Fight Club, right? And I've never even heard of Fight Club, but he can't resist trying to talk to me about it. The smartest person at an idiot convention is still an idiot. Me. Like I would just tell myself, this would just ring through my head. All of it, like because the stupidest person at the idiot convention is still an idiot, right? Like whatever this Fight Club is, it's it's not for bright motherfuckers either, right? It's the secret society for people who've ever worn a dunce cap or something, because that I feel like should become a little clear as this moves forward. Back to the ride to a polling place problem, as this is another one of the minor incidents that demonstrates his ignorance about the election process. As I mentioned before, each precinct has a polling place. The street that our building is on is a precinct boundary. It just so happens that the polling place for the precinct adjacent to our building is across the street. The polling place for the precinct that our building is in, what? Okay, ugh. The polling place for the precinct that our building is in is a few blocks away in the opposite direction. And so it goes for just about every precinct on the island. The polling place isn't centrally located. A few polling places accommodate multiple precincts, but that's besides the point. Like there's a high school that has both polling places are in it. One is the cafeteria and the other is the gym. And that was one of my babysit locations one time doing this. And I swear to God, 20% of the calls that I took that day were just the person was in the cafeteria when they should have been in the gym. Like, all day long. All right. So anyway, the point is that even if I could finagle a free ride to the polling place nearest the state capitol, it would still be just as far away from the Capitol building as we are right now. This conceptual ideal would be intuitive for anyone with the level of intelligence that he professes to possess. coupled with the amount of information I have given him over the course of our discussions. My assertion that I'm not going to a polling place is sufficient, and insofar as personal privacy and agency is concerned, all that is necessary to this conversation, right? He doesn't need any more of these details, right? I shouldn't have to explain every last thread of this to him, which is that's the irony here is that I've just explained it to an entire audience. But the problem is because he lacks the capability of understanding this. He just does, right? That's it. Like even Elizabeth's like, I don't think he'd ever get it, right? My assertion that I'm not going to a polling place is sufficient, and insofar as personal privacy and agency is concerned, all that is necessary to this conversation. I said it won't work. Let it go. In the same vein, he gets very excited that he has procured something he thinks I'm going to love, and when he finally does the big reveal, I couldn't possibly give any less fucks about it. I don't know if he just makes very poor assessments of what I will like, or if somehow, some way, he believes that he is getting insider information about me. For instance, maybe he believes that some fake Facebook account is me covertly communicating with him about things. I said it was going to get nutty spiritual, right? Like that it's we're gonna get into some I understand these are crazy suggestions, right? It seems completely peculiar, right? To think that it's like, is someone just out there pretending to be me, convincing people to like do weird shit? Like it's, but I don't know how else to explain him, right? The takeaway has more to do with the fact that no matter how many times his spectacular lead in fails, he never adjusts his approach to a level of normalcy. He presents himself as though he's about to reveal a unicorn, then presents me with old Red Book magazines. Thanks? No thanks. And this is so funny because I just did the recording of the Spades with episode 2 yesterday, so I know for a fact I have told that story. So that will be depending on what order, because I feel like you could watch these in any order too, and it's just an amalgamation of things, right? It's same shit, different day. So there's not really any reason to listen to any of this in order. If something sounds like it would be particularly interesting, just watch it first. I don't think you're gonna miss anything. Uh, but yeah, I mean, you're like, oh my God, you'll never guess what I got for you, and you're like, what? And it's like junk mail, like. I'm going to save the other two major incidents of civic ignorance for other anecdotes. Suffice it to say for now that a lot of his trouble understanding how things actually work or his becoming worked up over things that just simply aren't true comes from fucking Facebook. He literally spends hours on the platform every day, like all day. Like it's his job. And he would literally talk about it like it was his job. He would be on the phone with people, like some might call like and want help with like their TV or like doing stuff throughout the building and stuff like that or something, and he'd be like I'm too busy, I have way too much going on today, and he's just on Facebook arguing incoherently with people on news articles that he didn't even read, because you can tell from this like about irrelevant, like it's wild, because like I said, I know what his profile is, I come across his testimonies, I come across his posts on public, that when he replies to posts from the newspaper, right, that so it's like that there was this intersectionality where, and this is the other funny thing, we weren't then nor now ever friends on Facebook until after I left the way that I did. At one point, in a drastic attempt to get in touch with me, he then attempted to friend me on Facebook. But I always thought that it was odd that throughout all of this and how much he's on Facebook and he knows I have a Facebook and whatever, like it never even came up that we should be friends on Facebook. So that's why I said, I was like, I think he thought we were already friends. And then after things went down the way that they did, he realized this has never been her. And that might be maybe why after I left, he was so desperate to like, I just want to say goodbye. Like he said, like if I had seen him, he might have told me everything he knows. Right. But it's like, I never want to fucking see you. Like, I don't even care. It's like almost in a weird sense of like, I don't even care enough about getting closure to ever speak to you again. That is how irritating these people made you behave. And over the course of 5 years, you could not figure out that I was not the person that you were talking to. He literally spends hours on the platform every day, and when he mentions something that he's seen on it, he refers to it as though he thinks Facebook is some sort of internet catalog. He refers to individual posts as sites and overall talks about it in a way that lets me know that he is clueless about how the internet actually works. But he would do other stuff on the internet. He would like go on eBay. Like sometimes he would need like weird parts to fix them. Like I said, as he was actually pretty good at like doing stuff with people's TVs and stuff. So like if he needed like parts or like random things, he would go on eBay and buy them. Or like that's what like I said, it's like it was very disjointed. Um, as soon as he comes back from doing anything else, it's right back on Facebook. He rushes to it as though he's addicted to it, and while he is utterly enthralled by it, he has no idea how it works or what is going on there. But that too is for another anecdote. So, there's something else that this had made me think of that I'm pretty sure is somewhere else, and now I don't really remember what that was going to be. So perhaps it is a good place to stop here, or when I'm listening back to it and then doing the other voiceover, maybe it'll something will jog my memory and I'll insert it. But yeah, like I said, for now, that's the end of this anecdote. I'm going to go ahead and close it down. Um, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.